Continue to create this guideline over the year. We're going to start dropping our guideline underneath these symptoms for several reasons. It's going to continue to give us that nice long silhouette, but at the same time, we're going to get more room about, from the top of the crown to right here, we're going to get about 6 to 7 inches of fading room. In other words, if you create your guideline around here, right above your symptom, now you're limiting yourself to blend. And if you're not that experienced in blending, it's going to be really, really hard, and you're going to end up giving her somewhat of a high and tight look, which won't be flattering at all. So our goal is to continue our guideline and just drop it right underneath.
Is it zipped?
Yes, it's going to recreate a nice low blend and still give the illusion that she has it even all around, just tied her around the perimeter to make it last a little longer, and she'll feel fresher. Because we were talking backstage, she said, every time I get a buzz like this, I feel like I gotta retouch it every 3 days. So by trimming around the perimeter, it's gonna feel a lot fresher, a lot longer. What do you think, Rob? Alright guys, so check it out. How do you cosmetologists or licensed cosmetologists and use a straight razor? Jordan, you guys can't use a straight razor or a veg razor. It actually gets it really, really tight. So a lot of the times that I see barbers create blends, and I say barbers because I think that's really what it was at the beginning, that people were doing, people that were doing faces just mainly barbers. Now we got people transitioning from shorter hair, doing good blends. Right, just create a fade first, and then use a foil shaver at the end. Right, the problem with that is if you're not experienced with the foil shaver, you can create. So I immediately have to use my shaver first, because what's the hardest part of doing a bald fade is getting rid of that zero line, right? If you can't get that right, it's not a bald fade, right? So our goal is to turn it on. We see our original guideline, right? And right before you get to your guideline, you want to start tapping. When you tap, you're dispersing every line that's in there, right? And it's going to be easier to continue blending. The reason why I have it facing up like this is because when I pull the hair down, that one top blade is going to be easier to reach through here. And then once I get to both sides, and right before we get to our guideline, you want to start tapping, 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 tapping. And that's kind of our way of blending with foil shavers. And if anyone's never felt a foil shaver shave before, raise your hand. Like, oh, what do you think? So this is actually cooler than a straight razor, and it's legal for our cosmetologists to use. So how many of you ladies that are not transitioning into men's cutting feel like they're having a hard time developing, creating, and gathering more clients? Anybody? Nobody? Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. I can understand why a guy would walk in and be like, hey, I'm gonna wait on that gentleman. So a good way to actually trying to get that going is, the way that I taught some of my students, and I know Sophie went about it, is she actually faded half the head, right? She took her time, she took care of half the head, and when she finished it, she was able to turn it around towards the waiting area while she operated on the other side. So all this did for a solid 30 minutes was advertise her work. And actually it works so well because at the end of the day, people want to see proof of concept. They want to see results. And you can't show a great way to build it. So now that we continue, I pretty much went in with a 0.5 guard. If you guys don't know what a 0.5 guard is, it's a real thick guard that goes after the half, the no guard, and before the number 1. I went up about a 1/4 inch, and then I worked my way down with a 0 to blend it, and now we're going to go into a number 1. So my goal with her is to create a no fade. It looks like this. Like it's a graduation, right? Our goal is to have it nice and flush, to have that nice oval silhouette, but still, when you look at the side profile, it's going to look like it's a real low drop fade, which is going to complement, is going to show technique. And after we do that, it's very important to understand that you have to understand consistency, right? So we rated our original guideline going back, dipping. Our goal now with our number 1 is to recreate that same original guideline, about a ½ inch on top of that, and just work your way down, and we finish the blend, and we continue going step by step. Sometimes with cutting hair, especially barbers, I guess salons or barbershops come from above, right? Let me put you in a way that make it a little easier for you. So what basically what he's doing is using just that corner to get rid of any weight lines. For hairstylists, the manual way to do it is you kind of go in the same direction your hair is going in, and you're just going in, and you're dispersing. Wait, so it's a little harder on her because she got very blonde hair, but if you go all the way up, as long as you take 8 chunks off, but the problem with this is it's a manual thing you're doing. You're using your thumb constantly. What Hawk is doing, all he's doing is turning the machine on, and he's pointing exactly where he wants to cut. Is that right? Yep. And they're fading like that. What happens is, how many of us stand in front of a big window, ladies, and just feel like this is the perfect lighting for a selfie, right? Because everything looks good with light. How many of us have blended, and then the client has got it up, and you start seeing all types of mistakes and shadows and weight lines? Because sometimes when you blend like this, you're doing 2 things. One, you're killing your neck, holding it, breaking the neck. But when you're cutting, it looks amazing, and then you straighten your head. The light coming from above is not going to create shadows and weight lines you never saw. So get used to blending with her head. Sometimes I'll cut from this angle, finish. I'll get behind, and I'll cut from this angle because now I see a whole different visual. And even now, it's also going to be a great way to see a different angle, right? And for those ladies that are transitioning into less cutting, that feel some type of way about getting in front of a gentleman and doing their forehead without having anybody looking at them, it's easy as to say you might close your eyes today and just working on them. And this makes you feel a bit more confident because we all know as barbers, there's nothing worse than lining somebody up and making eye contact with the client, right? So that's the one thing you want to avoid is as simple as close your eyes and just going in. Great tip, you're not making anyone feel nervous or any type of awkward way. Yeah, some cool tips for you guys.
We're not staring at each other like what's going on here.
What are you looking at?
You got some nice eyes.
Without having to chase and follow your line higher and higher and higher, it's typically what I like to do is once I create my guideline and I blend that 0 line out, maybe up to number 1, then I always like to start from the top and work my way down. That way it's kind of neat in the middle. That does a few things for you. It helps you control where you want that fade. For example, the shadow, if she had really dark hair, the blend will be right where I want it. That's it. It won't be too high and it won't be too low. So that controls it. A very important tip for you guys that are trying to transition shear work into clipper work is finding your guide in a guard. Right? I mean, your finger length 4.5 on top. It'll be the exact same thing as if I went in there with my finger length and trim with scissors. Once you figure that out, and you have somebody with long hair, and you want to kind of get rid of what I call intimidation, because it can get really intimidating when you draw a 0 guideline and then you just have so much hair. Especially people that don't know what they're doing, they're going to be like, how am I going to blend that short hair with all this hair? When you remove all that weight with the finger length, which would be a 4.5, now you can over direct the hair on either side and use that as vertical section as your guideline to move and continue to shear weight. Right? And also using a 4.5, you can always work your way down from a 4, 3.5, 3, 2, all the way down to the fade. Alright, so look, as you guys can see, I still try to keep that look and even all around look, like dropping that face and go really take too high. It doesn't look like she has a high inside. And you can kind of see that blend slowly gradually. And as the roots start coming in throughout the days, it's actually going to come really nice because it's going to get darker from here and get lighter on top. Right? And that was our goal. And like we mentioned earlier, my brown silhouette look that we're looking for because I could easily paint a straight outline and just use it for a look. This is going to be a good all turn around. I'm going to give you guys a quick recap on how we went about getting this. I use my fat chef place. I started my guideline by the temple. Over the years, dropped it underneath this silver bone for several reasons to keep that round look. And my face right center round one. Still giving me a look because she has it even all around the ball already. Look at this look. I don't know.
Alright, so I'm going to do a real quick recap. I want to show y'all how frequent